Hello and welcome back to the GorillaBiker, and today what we're going to be talking about is my year 2000 Aprilia SL1000 Falco, and we're going to be doing a commuter review on it. Not that I think a lot of people would think this is a commuter bike, but it can definitely be used as one. So we're going to be talking about is the practicality of it, the comfort first and foremost. Comfort is always key. And we're going to be talking about the practicality and fuel economy. The final verdict on it will come a little bit later when we stop at a petrol station to actually check it. We're also going to be talking about the fun factor versus practicality factor. We're going to be talking about reliability, which is a big one on this bike that I think people get concerned about, but there is definitely no need to be, in my opinion, so that's a bit of a giveaway. The Ravability of the bike, wet weather performance, a summary, and does it look good dirty? So we'll probably do that now. So does it look good dirty? It's actually not very dirty right now, and I don't really let it get that dirty because it's so easy to keep clean, but it does look good dirty. You know, when I was riding this bike back from Germany, I bought this bike in Germany and rode it the whole way back, so that'll give you an indication of how much I like it. It did get quite dirty over there, but it always looks good. I think it's definitely a kind of a timeless classic design. So anyway, because of so much traffic especially today, let's get on the road and talk about all the bits. Okay, so I have no idea is that 360 contraption I have built going to actually work out in front of me, but let's wait and see. Hopefully I don't lose my 360 cam. Okay, so first and foremost, let's talk about the comfort of the bike. So, you know, if you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that I did actually ride this particular bike back 1800 kilometers from Germany in about 62 hours. So, you know, a couple of long days in the saddle. And would I recommend doing that on this bike? Probably not. In reality, it wasn't exactly the most comfortable thing in the world. But what I will say is, you know, for a commuter point of view, and this is a video about commuting on this bike, it is actually pretty comfortable. So if you're going and you have, like myself, I have about a 40-minute commute, this is perfect. I really have nothing I could say to fault the bike in 40 minutes of travel time. It's actually pretty damn comfortable. You know, if you have a shorter commute, if you have 20 minutes, 15 minutes, this would be absolutely lovely. The one thing I will say is, you know, again, and to get a full kind of view of the entire, I suppose, ecosystem of this bike, I would recommend watching my first impressions review and stuff where I mention how heavy the clutch is. And the reason that is important is because, you know, if you do a commute like this, which is wide open roads, you know, I have the option to come home, to go to work or come home on a motorway, which is like an interstate if you're based in America, or I can come home these roads, which are just nice back roads with kind of rougher surfaces, so they're not the most comfortable. Like here, this bit, oh yeah, it's a bit of a dirty lump, but you know, they're still wide open roads. I'm pretty much never getting caught in traffic, so that's important to mention as well. You know, I am 6'7", and I weigh around about 128 kg, or like 280 pounds thereabouts. Probably a little bit heavier right now, if we're being honest with ourselves. I need to get back to doing exercise, but basically that's what you're dealing with. And this is one bike I have found that is actually very comfortable for the taller person. In comparison to a lot of other bikes of this style, it's surprisingly comfortable. You know, other than that, I don't really have much to say. I think definitely if you were a lot shorter than me, you know, in the lower 5 foot, the reach to the handlebars might not be very comfortable, especially again on longer commutes, and especially in traffic, reaching out to that clutch and whatnot, that could get a little bit sucky. But definitely if you're a taller individual, I mean, this bike is actually, it's one bike that I have always thought is just, it really surprised me at how comfortable it was for a taller person. I mean, obviously I flew to Germany to buy it and bring it back. I was hoping it would be comfortable, but at no point did I think it would be, it would work out as well as it has. Now, I do have this bike currently sprung. It's the standard stock springs, so it is quite soft. But I mean, for road use, quite soft is probably what you want. and it does work out well. It kind of plays into my hands on, you know, these type of rides. It's just a bit more cushy of a ride for up and down to work. So again, you know, if you wanted this bike as a kind of a track and commuter bike and wanted the spring stiff enough, at that point you could maybe get to the point that, you know, the vibrations and stuff up into your hands, there's quite a lot of pressure in your hands and wrists. They might get to be a little bit much for you. You know, for like short commutes, like 50 kilometers, 30 kilometers, it's perfect. From a comfort perspective, absolutely perfect. So that kind of gets us on to practicality, and I'll do a little video clip later so you can see how this bike looks. You know, the hump in the back that I have on there, obviously you can have a rear passenger seat there as well, and you could put a tail pack on there that hold the tail pack pretty well. The tank is quite big. If you get a tank bag that goes forward, it could fit a tank bag quite well. So from a practical perspective, and as you can see, I'm wearing a backpack, so I mean there's definitely options there to make it usable. It's not going to be the most practical of bikes though. Like, anyone who puts a top box on this is committing sacrilege, in my opinion. They're heretics. I have seen some saddlebags that look quite good on there, so you know, you can make it work. You could do a hell of a lot worse in a practical sense. And from the fuel efficiency perspective, it's good enough that I've never noticed it being bad, if that makes sense. You know, I've never stopped and thought, my god, I am putting too much fuel into this thing. But it's also not very good on fuel, and I'll put numbers on the screen later when we get to the fuel station to refill this. It's going to be a little bit of a lie, because I actually put, you know, I have a fuel tank at home, just to, anytime I go near a petrol station in a car or a van, I fill that up just so I have it at home. Just makes refueling the bikes before work or whatever easier. But yeah, I mean, overall, again, it's just one of those things that it's never been bad enough that I'm like, Jesus, this thing is drinking fuel. You know, back from Germany, it did around about 200 kilometers until it popped on the fuel light and wanted some fuel. So just as a quick look, this is the hump section you have here. So there's good storage in there, you know, definitely not bad. You could fit something small in there, definitely not a laptop or anything like that, but you could fit your lunch. I have fit my lunch in there before. Oh, you're not going to go back in? You're embarrassing yourself. And you know, like I said, I've seen people have saddlebags on there. If you do go for the high lift exhaust, you definitely can do saddlebags, but if you don't go for the high lift exhaust, you can. So again, kind of a choice of you. So anyway, from a practical perspective, it's not the worst bike in the world. But I wouldn't be advising people to buy it because of how practical it is. Why I'd advise people to buy it is this: it is so much fun. This big V-twin has changed my perspective on V-twins. I always knew I'd like them, just because they're so much fun in general, and twins and whatnot. But yeah, definitely more than I thought. This has kind of turned me to the dark side of twins. You know, the performance of the bike is a way. It's quite a fast bike. It has very good brakes. It sounds great, even with the stock exhaust, which I don't know, they last forever. But from a fun perspective, woo, it's just absolutely fantastic. And I'm not even revving it high there because, you know, public roads and whatnot, and people watch these videos. Anyway, very few people buy a bike just because it's a practical machine, you know. Yeah, okay, you factor in practicality if it's your only bike. If you're like me and you just can't stop buying them, it takes a bit of a backseat. But certainly the main reason I like this bike is because of its performance, because of its fun. That is what drew me to it, and its looks. I mean, it looks absolutely fantastic, but that doesn't really factor into using it as a commuter. So yeah, definitely it's fun. It's so good in nice twisty roads. It's fun on flat open roads. It's a pretty fast bike for a twin and for something that's 22 years old. So really and truly, you know, fun factor, it's got to be up in like 9 versus practicality. I really wouldn't worry, but it definitely swings like a solid 80% fun towards practicality. If they were on a little sliding scale, it'd be pretty much the whole way towards fun. Now, the other reason it is kind of practical though is, and I mean it doesn't really feed into it too much, but it's sort of the fact that it's the age it is, you know. Parts are pretty easy to get from my experience. Parts are pretty cheap to get from my experience. And it's a nice bike to ride. So yeah, I'm gonna say it is a practical bike. It's pretty good on fuel, as we'll find out soon at the petrol station, and it's very, very fun. Then what I want to talk about is reliability. Okay, reliability on this one is what I'm going to call a mixed bag, but I don't blame the bike for the troubles I've had. I blame how it was taken care of previously, which, I mean, now that those issues have been alleviated, it should be an extremely reliable bike, and has been, you know, has been. So when I brought this back, we had a couple of things, you know. The stock Brembo discs are liable to warping, which is a common known problem, and mine were warped, so I changed all the discs. Obviously, being older, and if you buy one, you might run into the same trouble as I did, where, you know, it's all original rubber brake lines and stuff, and yeah, I just wouldn't be comfortable leaving them on there. So I changed them, I rebuilt the brakes, which you can do, or you can pay someone to do, but it's something I would recommend doing if you buy one of these, especially for commuting. You want it reliable. Another thing I did to ease off the pressure on the clutch was I got an Oberon slave cylinder for the clutch slave cylinder, and I also put on HEL braided clutch line there as well. So I've braided brake lines and braided clutch lines all from HEL, and then an Oberon slave cylinder, which is just, it makes the clutch pull a lot lighter, and it does. They claim to make it a lot lighter, and it really does. It really does make it a lot lighter. That's not a false statement. And I put new chain and sprockets onto it, but that's just maintenance stuff. But really and truly, the only trouble I've had at this is it killed the battery on the way back from Germany, but that battery was probably original. And if it wasn't original, it was definitely old, so I don't really blame the bike for that. And then another thing was it had been overfilled with oil, which had pushed oil up into the airbox, which made my spark plugs oily, and that's, I think, what actually ultimately stopped it starting. New spark plugs, cleaned the oil box and filled the oil properly, did resolve that. And then we did have one more issue that resulted in the oil line on the oil tank on the side, because it's a flexible hose. This is a dry sump system, so there's like a scavenger pump to pump it, so there's a couple of different lines and stuff. It's not like, it doesn't look like your normal oil sump basically. There's an oil tank rather than a sump. But what that resulted in was someone had left a piece of latex glove or something in the tank, blocked off the oil port, and basically blocked off the oil pressure release line, basically your overpressure line, your breather, we'll call it a breather. And what that resulted in was an oil blowout. But the thing about it is, I refilled it with oil, fixed the problem that was making it swell, and it's been an absolute dream to ride since, which is, you know, about 1,500 kilometers. So I also got the engine turned off before it did any damage, thankfully, because I turned it off instantly before the oil had actually left the bike. So, and even at that, you know, the bike just turned straight back on. It was like, oh yeah, I didn't lose all my oil, what are you talking about? It's, I mean, personally, I think once you make the right changes to them at the age they're at, they're a very reliable bike. The engine that's in it, the Rotax 60-degree V-twin, is known to be reliable once they're looked after. And you know, I rode this, like I said, back from Germany in really heavy rain and cold, and I mean, it just did not let me down until the battery went. And yeah, I mean, that could have partially been weather conditions, but not a problem. New battery, new sparks, this thing fired right back up and has been a dream to ride since. So personally, I would call this pretty reliable. I would not be afraid to ride this every day of the year. I'll put it to you that way, in Ireland, because we don't get snow and stuff, obviously. That's a different story. But yeah, I would be happy to ride it every day of the year. I do think it has the reliability to do that. Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned. Oh, it's so expensive. It's so expensive, it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. So we're going to call that 8 plus 6, 14.5. We'll call it 14.5 litres. So we will do the calculations when I come back out from paying for this fuel. Okay, so we'll call that 14.5 litres. I'm pretty certain I've done like 210 kilometers, so let's do a rough calculation. 210 on the button. 14.5 divided by 2.1. 6.9 litres per 100 kilometers, which is pretty good in my books, to be honest. I'm quite happy with that. 6.9 per 100 is absolutely acceptable. So I will put the I'll put the MPG and stuff up on screen for that now. US and UK MPG, because they are different. The US one is like, I don't know, 3.75 litres, and a UK one is like 4.51 litres. So that's why as well, when people always see, you know, UK versus US, I'm just gonna restart this. UK versus US MPG, they tend to think that like US cars and bikes and stuff are way worse on fuel than they actually are, because, you know, their gallons are smaller, so you know, it'll say like 20 miles to the gallon, but in reality, in UK miles to the gallon, yeah, that's like 30 at least. So it all makes a difference, but people don't know that, so they just judge the big American V8s and whatnot unfairly, and it makes me sad. So that is the fuel efficiency, 6.9 litres per 100 roughly, and I think that's pretty good. We can call it 7 litres per 100 kilometers, and I'll put all the other things up on screen now, but I'd be pretty happy with that. That's quite good. For a bike that I do enjoy riding on as well, you know, it's not a bike that's like completely babied or anything. So I am pretty happy with that result. I really like this road. It's always so nice, especially on a bike like this. The CBF is great and all, but the CBF just doesn't have the same sensation as riding a sportier bike. And this is why it's so much fun. So yeah, if you buy one of these, you buy it for this. You buy it for when you can come home from work and do that. You don't buy it for the motorway cruises, you buy it for that. The last thing I want to cover before we do our summary is the Ravability of this bike, and it's something I always mention because, you know, a lot of people commute into cities, or they commute, you know, from their city, also in their city or whatever else, and it's important to kind of know that what bikes have immobilizers and, you know, other security things that really could help stop your bike getting robbed. And this bike does not have an immobilizer. They did in later years, so if you buy a 2000 you will not have it. If you buy, like, I think it's 2002 or 2003 on, they do have an immobilizer, and that would help. But it's not a very heavy bike really, so a couple of people could lift it and whatever else. So I mean, from a robbability perspective, it's definitely more robbable on the scale than the CBF and you know, a Goldwing or something. But and I mean, it looks absolutely gorgeous. It is an eye-catching bike. I always get comments on it. So yeah, definitely it's a bike that will attract attention, and not always the right type of attention. So something worth noting, that the Ravability definitely is a little bit higher than the average bike. So anyway, to summarize and mention anything I may have forgotten to mention, this is a bike that is a definitely capable commuter as well, but it doesn't like pootling. It's definitely a bike that likes to be ridden and pushed on a little bit. Not only because it feels a lot happier there, the temperatures stay a lot happier there, but it rewards you a lot more. It's not a nice bike to ride pootling around town. You know, the clutch is still quite heavy, even with the updated slave cylinder. The stock one sucks in traffic. But you know, even with that V-twin, it just wants to go, and you can tell in traffic. So Definitely, I would highly recommend this bike as a commuter, just not if it's all heavy traffic areas. That would be less fun. But from a practicality perspective, it's fine. You know, it's an older bike. It doesn't have any fancy electronics to brake. So I mean, it's fine there. You can get saddlebags for it. You can put a tail pack seat. You can put the standard passenger seat and the tail pack on there. It's a big tank. You can definitely fit a tank bag. With the tank lock ring, it is a plastic tank, so you can't put a magnetic tank bag on there. I know some people like them. I'm not a big fan myself. And yeah, fuel economy is fine. I mean, 7 litres per 100. It's nothing that's going to win an efficiency award, but it's fine. It doesn't drink fuel. You know, I wouldn't really complain about that. In the grand scheme of all the bikes we've done here on the commute reviews, it's within that window. You know, they range from, you know, about 6 on the Magna, about 6.5 on the CBF, to around about 7 on this and the GSX-R. So yes, you pay a little bit more in fuel, but you do get the performance back out of that, you know. So I mean, you want more performance, you're going to use more fuel. That's just a fact of life. The fun factor is awesome. I love this bike. I love this bike. And if I ever sold this one, it'd probably just so I could buy another Falco and make that another little project of mine. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so much fun. It's like the Magna in that it has never failed to put a smile on my face, even when it's braking and stuff, which, you know, like I said, was definitely the previous owner's fault. It just wasn't looked after the way I feel bikes should be looked after. So we won't knock it for that. But fun factor, I absolutely love this thing. And, you know, riding it into work on the boring motorway just so I can ride it home on these roads is 100 billion% worth it, especially on a day like today. Highly recommended. And yeah, what else? Reliability, I think it's quite a reliable bike. Like I said, that Rotax 60-degree V-twin is known to be reliable. Everything else is easy to service. The brakes are easy to get to. The forks are, I mean, they've given me no trouble anyway. The things you might want to look at are your front brake discs. The rear should be fine. You may need to look at like perishables if you buy an older one, like your fuel lines and stuff. Mine have been fine, but you may need to do them. Other than that, there's not a whole pile I would say to check. You could just to be safe. This little guy here, that's the bleeder that was blocked. And also, if you turn on your bike and this pipe here feels really solid and is swelling, it's not venting correctly, and then you could have a catastrophic oil failure like I did. So I would recommend checking that for pig iron just to be safe. And yeah, like Ravability, it's an older bike, doesn't have an immobilizer, stuff like that. You can put a disc lock on it, but at the end of the day, it's a bike. If someone really wants to rob it, they're gonna rob it, unfortunately. And yeah, does it look good dirty? I think so. I prefer it clean though. And that's kind of it. To be honest, I think it's a fantastic bike. If you wanted one of these for a commuter / fun bike, I would highly recommend it. It's just I love it. It's a magnificent machine. You know, it's definitely one that I think has been overlooked by history, the same as the CBF. But this one even more so. Like a lot of people message me saying, I never heard of the Falco till you bought one. They're a fantastic bike, fantastic engine, fantastic fun. I highly recommend them. Highly recommend them. Anyway, if you watched, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this commuter review down in the comment section. As always, a very special thank you to all of my patrons. I really do appreciate your support and patience. I know I've been busy. You all know why, but the world at large doesn't know yet. I'll be able to tell you all, I really hope soon. But until I can, thank you very much. And until next time, thank you again for watching. Adios. Outro crew. If there was one thing that you had to have on your commuter and fun bike, what would it be? Honestly, if I had to get rid of all my other bikes in the morning for some crazy reason and I was left with this one, I would be perfectly happy, because this can commute, it can tour, I've done that, it can definitely do track days. It just can't go off-road. That's its only minor thing that it can't do, but I mean, I don't off-road anyway, so it wouldn't bother me. But yeah, let me know the one thing you absolutely have to have on your commuter bike. Yeah.